everybody, welcome back. I hope you had a great new year. I hope you've had a great start to 2026, and I hope your holiday season was also great. And I would like to apologize for not posting as many videos as I should have been. That is my bad, but there's just been a lot going on with school and all of that stuff. But I don't know if you can tell or not, I am really excited for today's video because today's video I had a lot of fun doing it. I don't know if you can tell or not, but I really hope that you will enjoy today's video by the end of this video. I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Today I'm going to be taking you on a brief trip to probably one of the most famous cities in the world, and that's Paris. Paris is the capital of France and is home to over 2 million people. Now, Paris is famous for many things. The Eiffel Tower, Louvre Museum, the Mona Lisa, its famous wine and cheese. It's famous for a lot of things, and the things that I just listed, I'm sure you all know that. But do you know that Paris has a very dark and well-kept secret? In fact, it's so close to Paris that it's located just below the city of Paris itself. So what exactly am I talking about? I'm talking about the Paris Catacombs, or like the Parisians like to call it, the Catacombs de Paris. So what exactly are these Paris Catacombs? They are essentially limestone quarries that are located underneath the city of Paris, and they're like a series of tunnels that are around like 280 kilometers long, and they are home to over 6 million human bones. You heard that right. 6 million human bones. So whose bones are they? How did they end up there? And why were the catacombs made in the first place? That's what we're going to find out in today's video. Now, for us to exactly understand why these catacombs were built, we need to go back to the late 18th century. So what exactly happened? Well, during this time period, it was very dark in France, especially in Paris. A lot of people were dying, and there was just no place to bury the dead. In fact, the main cemetery at that time, which was called the Cimetière des Innocents, was overflowing with corpses. It got to a certain point where the new corpses that were coming in were buried on top of graves that had already existed. In fact, there is a very famous writer called Rabelais who, to describe the situation, he wrote, Paris une bonne ville pour vivre, mais non pour mourir. So this translates to Paris is a great place to live, but not a great place to die. So this is how bad the situation had gotten. And obviously it caught the local authorities' attention, and they decided that, you know what, we're going to build a wall around our main cemetery, which was Les Cimetières des Innocents, and we're going to pack the walls with the extra bones. And when I say extra bones, these are bones from the graves that had already existed for a long period of time in the cemetery. So what they did was they built these walls around the cemetery, and they packed the walls with bones. But this happened in 1780. You fast forward a couple years later, in 1785, there was a restaurant owner called Gavelot. One day he went up to a cellar and he yelled out in French, of course, I'm going to tell you the English translation, that his cellar was invaded, quote unquote, invaded by corpses. Essentially, what had happened was that one of the walls that were built around the cemetery, remember, these are packed, like inside of the walls were bones. So one of these walls had actually broken down, and his restaurant was near the cemetery. So when it had broken down, these bones basically filtered into his restaurant cellar. So now his cellar was packed with corpses. Now this finally got the local authorities' attention, and they were like, you know what, we can't come up with such an easy solution like this. We need something out of the box, which is how they decided to move all the bones or corpses that they had into limestone quarries that were located, at that time, they were located on the outskirts of Paris. In fact, Paris hadn't grown to the extent it has grown today. So these quarries were actually located outside of Paris, and so they were like, you know what, we're going to move them here. So they decided to move all the bones there. And the funny thing, or I guess morbid is a better word for it, is that they packed these bones into boxes and moved them in the dead of the night. And why the dead of the night? There's actually a reason behind that. The Christian faith believes that when you bury the dead, that's like the last deed you do for them. So, which is why when the catacombs were built, right, or when they were transporting the bones, they separated the bones. So that's kind of going against the Christian belief. And if they were to do it in broad daylight, there would be retaliation from the Parisians. So to avoid this retaliation and the outrage, they did it in the dead of the night. And what they did was they took all these bones and then they just lined them up and dumped them in the limestone quarries. And these limestone quarries are what are known as the Parisian catacombs, or les Catacombs de Paris today. And in fact, there is actually, today you can actually visit the catacombs in Paris. I think there's actually only around 1 mile of it. That's all that's open to the public. The first time it opened to the public was in 1806, but another fun fact about the catacombs is that even though it opened to the public in 1806, the last major transport of human bones into the catacombs was somewhere between 1859 to 1860. So even though the first people to visit the catacombs, they visited in 1806, it actually expanded for decades after that. To this day, the catacombs are not completely open to the public. Only 1 mile of it is, and you can definitely visit. There are websites where you can sign up, but I think it is mandatory for you to go with a guide in France. You cannot go without a guide. Of course, not everything about France is as morbid as the Parisian catacombs. There's so many beautiful places to visit, but I believe that history teaches us a lot of things, and we need to look at both sides, the good sides and the bad sides. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Actually, I had a lot of fun filming this video. I learned a lot of new things. I hope you did too, and I hope I convinced you to visit the Paris catacombs. Remember to subscribe and leave a thumbs up, and like I said, I hope you liked today's video. I'll see you soon. Goodbye!